Hi guys, welcome to the OzConnection, the official YouTube channel for OzCon International, where you can find out about all things Oz. Back with us this time, it's my good friend and artist, Eric Shanower. Hey Eric, how are you?
Hi, Colin. I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here. Glad to talk to you and to all the people out there listening.
Well, it's lovely to see your face and hear you, as it's been some time since we've got together, but you've been with us before on this channel quite a few times. Now, Eric,
I guess I just can't stop coming back. There's just way too much Oz to talk about.
well, I'll always have you. You're more than welcome any times. Eric is quite the prolific Oz artist. He has illustrated several Oz books, including books from the original famous 40. He's written some Oz books, and he's also recently involved in the Marvel Oz comic book series. And Eric has a new book that he's here to talk to us about today.
Yes, my new book is All Wound Up, The Making of the Tik-Tok Man of Oz. This is somewhat of a departure for me because I usually am involved in projects about Oz fiction, but this is a nonfiction book. So it was something new for me, but I'm very proud of it and I hope everybody likes it.
It looks pretty huge, to be fair. So All Wound Up, the Tik-Tok Man of Oz. Let's give a little bit of background then. So those of you who may have been MGM fans will probably not have much of a clue what TikTok is, full stop. And certainly TikTok these days has a different connotation. Well, this book dates this musical dates right to the early 1900s, am I right?
Yes, the musical, The Tik-Tok Man of Oz, was written by L. Frank Baum, and the music was by Louis F. Gottschalk. It was produced in Los Angeles in 1913 and toured all around the US for about 10 months. It was not a huge success, but it was a moderate success. The struggles that it had are all detailed in my book.
Cool. So this is the third big musical involving L. Frank Baum by this point in time. We've had the Wizard of Oz Broadway musical. Then we had a Marvelous Land of Oz musical. And then now This would be the third and final one. Would that be correct?
Basically, that is shorthand, although Baum was involved in many, many stage projects all along the way. But this was his third Oz musical. The first one, The Wizard of Oz, was a tremendous hit. And it was produced for 7 years. It made him rich. It made everybody involved with it rich. It was the most popular iteration of Oz up until the MGM movie happened. And Baum kept trying to repeat that experience for the rest of his life. The Tik-Tok Man of Oz was the closest he came to repeating that success, but it didn't gel.
Okay. So is Tik-Tok Man of Oz before or after the Tik-Tok of Oz book that L. Frank Baum wrote?
The play came before the book. The book was the 7th book in the Oz series, Tik-Tok of Oz, and it was actually written after the play. It was based mostly on the play. The play was actually based a lot on Baum's third Oz book. He kept trying to write more Oz books to base musicals on after the first Oz book had a successful musical based on it. So he wrote a second Oz book in response to the successful Wizard of Oz play, which was The Marvelous Land of Oz. That was the title of the book. The play was actually called The Wogglebug. It lasted about a month. It was a tremendous flop, financial and critical failure. Baum wrote a third Oz book, Ozma of Oz, and The Tik-Tok Man of Oz is based upon that book. It was his third Oz musical based on his third Oz book. He kept trying to pump out those books to make successful musicals. it just took a long time for the stage show to get produced. He started working on it as soon as the book was published, but it just took years to actually make it to the stage.
Wow. Yeah. And Baum, certainly from a lot of our knowledge, had a lot of success and a lot of failure, particularly when it comes to creating media off the back of Oz. He certainly was not so successful after the first musical. Now, 1913, old, unknown to many people, particularly outside of Oz, and probably to a lot of Oz fans. What's led you to produce this in-depth book about the musical? So how long have you been working on this? A couple of years?
Oh, the whole thing started back in 2012. So that's 11 years ago. My partner, David Maxine, was the executive director of what was then called the Winky Convention. It is now called OzCon International. It's an annual Oz convention that's been going on since the early 1960s. And the 50th anniversary of the convention was going to be in 2014. That also happened to be the 100th anniversary of Baum's Oz book, Tik-Tok of Oz. David thought that a concert version of all the music that was written, that still existed, that was written by Gottschalk for the show, would be a good feature for the 50th Winky Convention. And he thought that maybe that the script could be read, but he wanted particularly all the music to be performed. And he and I would discuss how could this be possible. In 2012, the convention venue had been in Pacific Grove, California, which was kind of remote for us, and to take a whole cast of a show there would be quite expensive. But the venue was becoming more and more expensive and throwing up roadblocks. So the convention had to move. David decided to take it to San Diego, for at least temporarily, which was where we lived. And I said, oh, well, if you want to do the Tik-Tok Man of Oz there, it would be less expensive because you wouldn't have to transport and put up all the actors. They could just use local people. So I just started describing a lot more elaborate than he was willing to produce at the convention. And he said, well, if you want to take on this task, I'll put it on Saturday night at the convention. And I said, okay, very naively, not really realizing all the amount of work I was taking on. So I set to work collecting all the materials, revising the script to fitting all the music into the script. One of the challenges with that was that all the music that still existed was never performed in one single performance. They kept redoing, taking out songs, putting in new songs, and those songs would be published. So we had more songs than were actually performed in any single production of the show. So that meant I had to cut out as much of the script as possible, still retaining a storyline that was coherent, but taking out any kind of fat. So we could fit the whole thing into 2 hours. Also, a problem was that some of the music is totally gone. As far as we know, it doesn't exist anymore for several important numbers, like the finales and the prelude. So I had to figure out what to do about that, and we found solutions to that. So anyway, I produced this show at the convention. I thought it went well. A lot of people seemed to enjoy it.
I'm a man of many parts and complicated clockwork makes me go. Tick-tock! I can run because I'm finely regulated, never fast or slow. Tick-tock! Right on time, you're always sure to find me. My work runs down, you mustn't find me. Take the key and then proceed to wind me, and my genius I will show. Always work and never
I had this reconstruction of the script and the score. And I thought, as I was working on it, I thought, well, that would be nice to publish this someday. The lighting designer of the show really thought that the script and score should be published. He said this would be great for schools. The big advantage of this script is that there are 9 principals. So if you have like a drama group, like an amateur drama group, that gives a lot of people big roles. I had this idea, and then years went by, but I still wanted to print this script. So David has a publishing company called Hungry Tiger Press, and that's what I just thought, well, we should just publish it through Hungry Tiger Press. David said, well, why don't you also publish, in addition to the script and the score, publish the article that I had written on the history of the show for the convention program book in 2014. I thought, okay, a 3-volume set, that sounds great. The problem with that was that I had made some mistakes in my article. Actually, I had written it in a week, this 50-page long article on the whole history of the show in 1 week. It had errors in it. So I wanted to revise it for a book. And I thought, well, I need to expand it to Scott Cummings had written an article for the Bomb Bugle on the history of the show the same year. It was the 100th anniversary of the book Tik-Tok of Oz. So a lot of these things about Tik-Tok were being published that year. So Scott's article came out it was very parallel to mine. It had a lot of the same information, but he discussed some things that I didn't discuss, and I discussed things that he didn't discuss. So I thought, well, I need to cover everything that I missed, and I need to talk about the origins of the show because they're quite complicated, quite fascinating, and they extend into the rest of L. Frank Baum's career. So I thought that was all important to put into a book. So it took me about 3 years to finish the book. The other thing that I thought was really important for this book was to publish a biography of the composer, Louis F. Gottschalk. Gottschalk has a Wikipedia page, which is it has some information about his life, but it is missing a lot. And there's like little things you could quibble with as whether they're errors or not. But there's never been a complete overview of this man's life that's not unfairly weighted toward his connections with Oz. If anyone knows about Louis F. Gottschalk, it's probably because of his associations with L. Frank Baum. He wrote the music for the Tik-Tok Man of Oz. He also was one of the directors of the company. He was on the board of directors of the Oz Film Manufacturing Company, which he and Baum helped begin in 1914. And he had a few other small connections with L. Frank Baum. But his Broadway career and his Hollywood career are much more extensive than anything he did with Baum. And that's what I felt was necessary to chronicle, just to get a good idea of who this guy was. L. Frank Baum has had several biographies published. The producer of the show, who's the third major figure in the story of the show, Oliver Morosco, has a biography published. You can find information on these people, but Gottschalk, I felt, had been basically ignored, and that's what I needed to put in this book. So about maybe a fifth of the book is Gottschalk's biography.
Yeah, that's a lot. I knew he wasn't very well covered, so it's not just Tik-Tok Man of Oz that this is covering. This is actually a biography of Gottschalk as well, which is fantastic.
It is. The other so that took me, researching that was just this whole other task. So it took me a long time. I kept thinking, I only have a few more months on this project, but it was like, no, it's a few more years.
Is it any easier now in the digital age? Did you just find all this stuff online?
I did. Yes, of course. Yeah. Yes, it's much more. Online newspaper archives are incredibly valuable, and they reveal so much information that no one has bothered to access before. And I was researching on this during the the lockdown. So I couldn't go anywhere because of COVID, and I had to do research in New York City. So I was able to contact people in New York City who helped me with the research. Also, it was after the pandemic, but I got help from a person in London who helped me with some of the research too. Actually, she was the most they were all valuable, but the woman who actually found the script of the TikTok Man of Oz, which had never been published before, had never been accessed before, that was quite valuable too. And that was all I was sitting at home here talking to her over the internet.
So talk to me about that then. So you're saying when you did the 2014 production, which I was there for, it was phenomenal. But I know you were absolutely exhausted from doing it because you put everything into that production for OzCon. You said it wasn't a fully real, the full elements of the script and the musical weren't there. So you've discovered more then through this process, is that right?
Yes. For years, the only two versions of the script that were known were a very early draft by L. Frank Baum, which was still titled Ozma of Oz, which was the same as the book it was based on. And the other script that was known was only partial. It was the first 30 pages of the script, of the final script for the TikTok Man of Oz, but only the first 30 pages were there. So all of Act 2 was missing and a little bit of Act 1. Those two scripts are what I used to base the production in 2014 on. And that is actually what this script is. This script is basically the 2014 production. This is the script that I published in the 3-volume set that I'm talking about today, the TikTok Man of Oz script.
And that says performance script. So can you hire that script? Can you run that production?
Sure. Yeah, that's available. All the information is available on the Hungry Tiger Press website and store for anybody who's interested in producing it. Both the script and the piano vocal score are available for production right now.
I'll make sure to post all links to the Hungry Tiger Press webpage and the links to the book at the bottom down in the comments for anyone who wants to pick this up. And also the music as well. You saying you did something about the music as well. Have you done any work on that?
Yeah, this is the score that's available for production that's accompanies the script, it's piano vocal score. It contains all the music that was written for the TikTok Man of Oz that still that we know still survives. And some of it's reorchestrated. Well, it's not orchestrated because it's only piano vocal, but it is written. It is reconstructed to fit the script, this performance script, and the missing pieces that I had to reconstruct are in there. They are based on original materials and original Gottschalk music. So everything is by Baum or Gottschalk, adapted by me. And the musical director, Joseph Greenenberger, from the production that we did in 2014, also worked on the score.
Wow. So did you discover any more music during the process, or is that something that you couldn't get your hands on?
Yes, I discovered one more song. There were several interpolated songs that some of the actors seem to have brought to the show, not written by Gottschalk, not written by Schertzinger, who were the main composers of the show. I hope that's not confusing. Gottschalk was the composer of the show, but Schertzinger, Victor Schertzinger, was the concert master. Gottschalk conducted the beginning of the 10-month production. Schertzinger took over at some point and was then the conductor, and he also wrote numbers for the show. All of the known Schertzinger numbers are also included in the published score. And there were several interpolated numbers. During my writing I'd only found 2 of them by the time we did our production in 2014, but we did not use them because they were not officially written for the show. We only used music that was actually written for the show, plus the ones I had to reconstruct, which are iffy. But we did not use the interpolated numbers because they were not actually Tik-Tok Man of Oz music. But I found another one, Charlotte Greenwood, who was the second actress to play Queen Anne So Forth of Oogaboo, had a vaudeville number that she was known for, and she brought it to the show and performed it. And so the music does not seem to exist, but we have two verses, lyrics for two verses. So those are in this book.
So show me all three books, the spines, side by side.
So the thinnest one is a script. The next one is the vocal score. And the third one is the book on the history of the show, which is 440 pages long.
Wow.
I pulled of everything I could possibly find on the show. Well, not everything, because there are a few photographs that I didn't get in here, but I put them in the script and the vocal score. So if you want all the photos that I found about the show, you have to buy all three books. But there's a lot of information in here.
And if you want to buy all three books, what's the pricing? Is there a deal for all three?
There is a discount if you buy all three at once from the Hungry Tiger Press website, from the store. They are, I think, I can't remember exactly for sure right now. I'm sorry.
I'll put the prices up on the video. Don't worry. As it's near to Christmas, excellent time to get an order in for a Christmas present. Certainly.
The books are available anywhere books are sold. But if you buy them from the Hungry Tiger Press web store, I will sign them. So you will get them autographed by the author. If you want them signed to a name in particular, you can put that into the special directions box when you place your order.
Oh, cool. So a little bit extra, because unless you're going to meet you at a convention with that particular book, then it's the only way of getting it signed right now, certainly before another convention comes along. What else is unique then about this book that other people will not be aware of?
Well, I print in all wound up the entire final script of the Tik-Tok Man of Oz. As I said, back in 2014, we only had the early draft and the truncated version of the final script. But within the last year, the complete final script was found. So it was actually found right after I submitted this to the press. So we had to stop the press. I had to revise some of the book, and I had to transcribe the entire final script to get it into the book, because I had just been printing the truncated script. But now we have the entire Baum's entire script for the Tik-Tok Man of Oz is printed in this book, so that's available. I'm very proud of that.
First time in what, over 100 years that's probably been printed now.
It's the first time it's ever been published. Wow. First time. You can't get it anywhere else.
And just managed to get that in there before you hit the printers. That's something that's pretty extra. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of stressful. It's kind of stressful. It was like, what is this thing? Is this really it? Is it? Yes, it is. Oh God, we have to stop publication.
At least you got it just in time to get it in there.
Oh yeah, I'm so glad. But it made the book a little late than I was telling people it was going to come out. But it was late anyway.
We're all happy to get as most complete version, full stop, including the full script.
Yeah. The other thing that's printed in all wound up that has never been published anywhere before is Baum's original scenario from 1909. He wrote sort of a treatment of what the show was going to be before he wrote any drafts of the actual script. So this also publishes for the very first time what's called The Rainbow's Daughter, which was Baum's treatment for the show.
And does that involve more references to the Ozma of Oz version that was originally kicking around?
It is. He took out all the Oz references in the Rainbow's Daughter scenario. So it doesn't have anything to do with Oz, although it does have Oz characters, the Shaggy Man, Polychrome, characters like Private Files and Queen Anne, who later became Oz characters. The character of Ozma, the Rose Princess, who in the show is named Ozma. When he turned it into a book, he changed her name to Ozga to avoid confusion with Ozma in the books. In the scenario, she was named Idela, Princess Idela, the vegetable princess. So that evolved. That's a scene that actually came from Dorothy and the Wizard in Oz, the book, which Baum's fourth Oz book, when Dorothy and the Wizard and Zeb go to the vegetable kingdom. So that episode made it into the scenario and actually lasted all the way into the production of the show, although details changed, such as the character's name, Princess Idela, became Princess Ozma. So Baum's creation of the stage show, the Tik-Tok Man of Oz, I find incredibly fascinating because it went through so many stages. It actually started with the stage show of The Wizard of Oz because Edith Ogden Harrison wrote a book called Prince Silverwings. When The Wizard of Oz became this huge, triumphant success, producer in Chicago, a stage producer in Chicago, went to Edith Ogden Harrison and said, "We want to turn your children's book into a musical too for the stage, just like The Wizard of Oz." She said, "Oh, great." And she had to figure out who was going to write this script. And so she hired Baum. Baum turned her book into a stage show. And that stage show actually is what evolved into book Ozma of Oz. And then the book Ozma of Oz evolved into the stage show, The Tik-Tok Man of Oz, which evolved into two books, Tik-Tok of Oz, and also Baum's kiddie book, Tik-Tok and the Gnome King, which came out in 1913 while the show was running.
Wow. So again, all this is referenced in the book.
Yes. There's this huge web of works, stage works, books, and films that are all interconnected, which I did this diagram of. Here, I'll try to show it to you.
Oh, wow.
All the works that are connected to the stage show, The Tik-Tok Man of Oz. Most of them are by L. Frank Baum, but obviously you can see at the top here, it's Prince Silverwings, which was a book by Edith Ogden Harrison. And there's a couple other books by other people in there too, because Baum was collaborating and they split when their collaborations collapsed. They each took ideas from the collapsed works, and Baum and his collaborators all used those ideas in different works. So it spreads everywhere. It's a really fascinating study on how L. Frank Baum worked, how he created his Oz books and his other fantasies. And it's like nothing that we have that shows his working method in a similar way. It's unique, and it's a 10-year process. So it's a third of his time as a published author. And it's a really unique snapshot of Baum's work as an author.
I think what's fascinating about that is something that the Disney company often say, which is no good idea goes to die. It rebirths in another way if something's kind of doesn't work, but it comes back and is used at a later stage. And I think that's a definite clear example of that. And let's give Baum maximum creative kudos for changing the name of Ozma to Ozga. Absolute genius. So what else then? A couple of things for me before we finish up, which is You mentioned there are a number of images in there. So what's a taster of the kind of imagery you've been collecting as part of this book series?
Well, there were lots of photos published in the newspaper, lots of publicity photos of all the characters, all the actors. So I collected all of those that I could possibly find and used them. There was a series of stage photos taken when the show was about 4 to 5 months old. And so that iteration of it, the show kept changing over its 10 months because they kept trying to find the perfect form for the show to get to Broadway, but it never quite gelled. It went through 2 directors, and most of the actors, most of the parts were played by multiple actors. They kept putting new people in. I think the only 2 parts that didn't get replaced ever were Betsy, who was played by Lenora Navazio, and Hank the Mule, who was played by Fred Woodward, but all the other parts changed. Other photographs that I collected were of all the chorus girls and the chorus men and all the production people on the show. I found as many of those as I could. I couldn't find all the chorus girls, and it was very hard to find chorus boy photos because the chorus girl photos were published in the paper because they always wanted to advertise themselves. Chorus girls got their photos taken and published, but chorus boys didn't really do that. No one wanted to see them. So I don't have as many photos of the chorus boys, although I do have some. And I have photos of all through Gottschalk's career, of course. I also have a section on Fred Woodward, the actor who played Hank the Mule, because Hank the Mule, who was a character that started in the Tik-Tok Man of Oz, created by L. Frank Baum, after the show closed, that character took on this whole new life of his own and lasted up until the late 40s. Wow. On the stage, in movies, on TV, all over the world. Fred Woodward took this character everywhere. He performed in cabarets, in nightclubs, and other venues like that all over the place. Australia, South Africa, all over Europe. We have listings of him, on the same bill with Maurice Chevalier and Josephine Baker. So there's as much photo documentation of him as I could have. His story is so fascinating, so surprising. And it has several connections to the MGM film, which I won't go into here. But I kept finding all these new facts about Hank the Mule that were shocking because I had never heard these before, and no one had heard them as far as I knew. So I put them all together in this book. I also have to say thank you, Colin, because while you were executive director of OzCon International, you allowed me to make several presentations at the conventions of material that has gone into this book, including my show on Hank the Mule, which I revised and is published in this book, all wound up.
Oh, anytime. I'd have you on anytime, particularly. And I do remember you doing a presentation on Fred Woodward, and it was fascinating. And I guess people will have to read the book, really, to read that fascination. And whilst we're on the individual cast members, do you have biographies, whether they be mini biographies on the cast members that you could find?
Oh, yes. I put as much biographical information on everybody connected with the show as I could possibly find. They're just capsule biographies. The only major biographies I did were for Louis F. Gottschalk, the composer, and Fred Woodward, the actor who played Hank the Mule. But everybody else has short, like half pages, even all the chorus girl information I could find. I couldn't find information on all the chorus girls, but dozens of them I could.
Well, it sounds
and it's all in there as much as I could. I just wanted to make this a complete resource for anyone who's interested in this show, because I figured this is a pretty obscure show. No one remembers it. No one knows anything about it unless you're interested in Oz, and you have to be pretty interested in Oz to have even heard of it. I guess people could run across like a piece of sheet music in an antique store, but they'd probably go, what in the world is this? So how many books are there going to be ever published on this show? So I figured this is going to have to be it. I just put in everything I thought would be of interest to anybody, and tried to make it as lively reading as possible and as interesting as possible.
Well, you're absolutely the right person to do that. As you said, how many people are going to write this book? I'm pretty sure it will be not just fascinating for Oz fans, but also for theatre fans, particularly turn of the century theatre fans as well, who will reference this book for years to come.
Yes, I hope it will be a valuable resource for anyone interested in American musical theater history, because I've tried to present a picture of what that was like, particularly in Los Angeles in the early 20th century, and which is where the Tik-Tok Man of Oz started, and on tour, touring the country, which every show did. Touring was what you had to do.
It's certainly fascinating to me. Any closing thoughts you want to leave with the audience before we wrap up?
I working on this show was a really involved task. I was very enthusiastic about it, which was the only thing that carried me through. I tried to inject that enthusiasm into the book, so I hope that shows, because I think otherwise this would be some dry text about some show no one cares about. But I hope that the actual interest that there is inherent in this material shows through. I trust that it does. The reaction's been good so far, but we'll see. We'll see what people say. Now, like, that thing that Eric Shanower wrote. Oh, I couldn't get through it.
Oh my God, it's in the bargain bin. It's $1. Buy one, get one with another book. I'm sure it won't be. I'm exceptionally grateful for you writing this book, as I'm sure many fans are. And certainly I'm pretty sure there'll be theatre fans as well. And thank you for doing it. Thank you for all your Oz work. But this is, again, like you've said, very, very different to the Oz work that you would normally do, which would either be an Oz story or more known for as an illustrator and comic book artist. So I'm very fascinated about the final version when I get my hands on it. Obviously, being over in the UK, it's a little bit. I can still get it, but it's. I need to pick up an order.
Great, thank you for having me on, Colin. I'm delighted to talk about the book.
No problem, and I'm sure I'll have you on again with either another book or another chat or another panel in the future. That's never going to change. So for the book, the best place to get this would be over at Hungry Tiger Press. You can get it anywhere, but if you want an autograph from Eric, that's the place to go. If you buy direct from Hungry Tiger Press, then you can pick up all 3 copies with a discount.
Yes.
Yeah. So definitely pop over to Hungry Tiger Press. I'll put the link down below, and you all have a fantastic time. And thank you for being here, Eric. And we'll see you all again real soon. Take care.